Welcome back to the Exchange for Entrepreneurs podcast. I'm your host, James Black, and today I'm very excited to bring the show back and welcome a very special guest, Liz Priestman, CEO and Director of International Deal Gateway. And I'm excited to have Liz on the show because we're going to be doing some work together next week in London. If you're listening to this after the fact, we've done the business. But the fact of the matter is myself and the Canadian Securities Exchange and some of our companies are going to London, not Ontario, in the UK, to meet with family offices and basically do some networking, hopefully some investing. So Liz, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Great. Thank you, James. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited as well, and I'm excited to meet. I think we're both in Toronto today, but next week we'll be in the UK. And maybe just set the table for our listeners. What is it that International Deal Gateway does? What is the vital role that you are playing connecting investors to companies, some public and maybe some not public? But maybe tell us what it is you guys are working on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, our team of founders came out of building growth companies, and one of the challenges with growth companies is always access to capital. And growth companies move at a swift pace. So we looked at the CEOs of these companies and really recognized they have a story to tell. And we see our role as finding those stages where CEOs can share their story and build a following and sustain that following through engagement. So we do that in a couple of different ways. One, we find unique and alternative capital where family offices or high net worths and other investor pools can learn about and meet these founders and then follow the story. So it's really about introducing what that company's doing and then keeping that investor audience updated as they achieve those milestones or key catalysts that propel the company forward.
No, it makes sense. I mean, the worst thing you do is take an investment, then not talk and communicate with your investor after the fact and tell them what progress you're making and what steps you're taking to make good on that investment. Maybe tell me though, what is you mentioned the word family office. It comes up a lot on your website, and that's a key focus of the event that we're doing is going out to talk to family offices. Why is this such a vital group of investors, and what makes them different than, say, your typical retail investor or even institutional investor that you might find on Bay Street?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, so family offices, good definition. These are very wealthy families. They tend to have 100 million pounds in investable assets and up from there. One of the challenges with families is overflow of cash and needing a place to make an investment. But what's very different from them with respect to, say, retail investors is their time horizon. So they have a problem with excess cash. They need to put that cash to work, and they're looking to invest in those exciting stories and be a part of emerging sectors and breakthrough from technology, healthcare, biotech, and they often take longer to make a decision. So they're not trading in the market like a retail investor might, but they are very much relationship oriented. So when they establish that trust and a CEO has demonstrated credibility and you foster that relationship, family offices are wonderful investors to have in your shareholder pool because of that long-term time horizon.
Understood. That's a good description of what they do. And maybe tell me, are they, do they have a preference for public companies? Do they have a preference for private companies? Is it sort of a mix based on, what the deal is? Do you see any sort of inclination towards a certain type of company at what stage? Or is it, at the end of the day, if they like what they see, they find a way to get money into it?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of all of those things. Certainly, if there's a fit, both in terms of that chemistry and the opportunity, anything can unfold. What we've certainly seen from the family offices that we work with in Europe, so I would say those families actually like the Canadian listed public companies because there are many small cap companies that are, again, these growth stories that with new breakthroughs and exciting horizons, those family offices have access to all the due diligence they need with, regular reporting, audited financial statements, news releases. Those public companies have an established platform for families to follow along and to learn about the company. And really in a first presentation, this is not Dragon's Den or Shark Tank. There are no families leaping out of their chair waving checks. This is an opportunity to introduce your story and get on their radar. Being public gives them access to that information they discreetly need on their end to pay attention and watch. And then as private placements or investment opportunities come up, you have a sort of quietly engaged audience that you can go back to.
All right. No, and I was going to say that because our event is in person and it's people meeting people, maybe from your own viewpoint, because your company does virtual presentations, it does virtual upkeep as far as communications, but it has, obviously a one-to-one, presentation style as well with going to these family offices. And I want to know why you feel that after COVID and being on computers for so long, that meeting face-to-face from an investment, prospecting for investments is still very important. Why does that human element still count?
Yeah, I think there's, virtual events have been a great supplement and certainly carried us through some prolonged dark days through COVID where you didn't have that opportunity to meet face to face. But again, if you think of the time horizon for a family office, they're looking for a long-term relationship, a place to, park and build that opportunity. So they're very much relationship oriented. As we know, it's difficult to establish chemistry over, a video screen. That face-to-face meeting is paramount for family offices. Now, that said, we do, we webcast our live events, recognizing that we're not going to get in front of hundreds of families at one time. We can do that through, extending that reach in a virtual format. So we do webcast our live events. We also record them and package them up to, again, extend the reach and help get that story out to more families. We also recognize that family offices don't operate at an individual level. These really are families. So they might meet quarterly or they might meet monthly and present opportunities and companies that they like. And a great way to do that is to access that video presentation. It's the next best thing to meeting in person because you really do get a feel for the confidence of the CEO, the personality of the CEO, and having a video, I think, is the next best thing to meeting in person.
Right. And I agree with you. I mean, it is a supplement is a perfect word for it. I think a combination of the two. I think a lot of businesses have a challenge right now of deciding how much to weight into in-person events and virtual because the two work together so nicely, but we all have limited budgets and time, obviously. So it's a mix, right? And, we're going to the UK next week. And I guess what I kind of want to, unpack a little bit is why the UK, why London? There's anyone who's been there can see the wealth and the historic wealth. And obviously you mentioned, family offices. I mean, these aren't just British people. These are people from all over, Europe and the Middle East that are putting money into that ecosystem. Maybe just for some of the issuers that are looking at maybe doing this in the future, why London? Why is it important to try knocking on doors in that particular place?
It's a great question. I think first and foremost, language is it's very easy to review and learn about a company because we speak the same language, which always helps. Now, that said, our relationship with family offices is global. We have families that fly in from Tel Aviv, from Dubai, from Geneva and Zurich and Milan. But family offices really have an epicenter in the world, which is London. So even though a family may not reside in London, they often have an office there. So the 2,400 family offices that are part of the network, I would say probably 85% would have an office in London or reside in London. So it is really that epicenter. They have, you know, access to deal flow out of the UK and Europe. But what they miss out on are all the emerging and innovative companies being developed in North America and other parts of the world. This is a really great pipeline of deals and opportunities they'd otherwise miss. They might see it when it's got the name Google or Facebook and they're invited to participate in the financing, but they don't get to be part of that trajectory. And being a part of these exciting stories is really relevant to family offices.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's very well said that there is actually an ocean and a divide between our continents. And, the little guys here, the small cap, micro cap companies are typically working so hard to raise their local capital that, to go overseas and to start raising money is it's a big venture, and they have to go into a trusted environment. And, I think that's what you guys are providing, which is wonderful. So, and guided. I mean, you said 2,400 family offices. That'd be daunting to try to do that on your own. So tell me, when they get this opportunity to meet these offices, and I know they have different criteria from family to family, but how do you see these companies succeeding and gaining traction? You mentioned that, okay, they've got the, so obviously they have to have a sound business, and things have to be performing decently, and they have the track record and the transparency by being public. But when it comes down to that one-to-one meeting or them having that sit down, what do you find is helping these companies succeed in meeting the investors' expectations or getting some traction there?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really a two-way street. So I think it's also the CEOs managing their expectations. And again, this is a little bit like dating. You wouldn't expect to propose at your first interaction. And so setting your own expectations around this is really about finding the right family office or right collection of family offices to be part of our journey. This is not transactional for them and shouldn't be for the CEO. So the objective of these first presentations is to meet in person, establish some credibility and chemistry, which we can do in that one-to-one, face-to-face experience. And what you want to do is come away with families that are interested and engaged in the story. They're leaning in, and they're adding you to their watch list. They're not writing checks first day. That's like getting married, but they are, they're ready to start, slowly dating or, monitoring what the company is doing. The great thing about being public or going public is now they are, they've added you to the watch list, you're on their radar, and they're able to monitor your progress. So again, two-way street. Those CEOs that present paint a picture of what they're going to be doing over the next, several quarters. And when they deliver on those things, they put out the news releases, and that gives the family the opportunity to monitor it and say, okay, they came and said they were going to do A, B, and C, and they're doing it. And now they have a private placement coming up, or they have a block of shares that are available. And that's an opportunity for a family to lean in and revisit that connection. They do, people will always ask, CEOs will say, well, I presented and I saw my stock move, or, there was some volume. Families do buy out of the market from time to time, but it is, at the scale they're looking to participate, it can be tedious. So if a presenter doesn't have a private placement coming up or a financing available, knowing where you can rustle up a block of stock is also another way to engage with a family office who's interested.
Right. So that actually leads me to my next question about Canaccord, which is, I know you guys have a relationship with them, a partnership. They're investors in IDG. What is the, how did they intermediate or help with you guys in this whole process?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that really attracted us to Canaccord Genuity is obviously they're muscle in the investment banking sector, and they're the investment bank that supports growth companies. That was a really natural fit for us. In addition to that, they have the wealth management side. So they're working with high net worth and family offices and other investors that are looking for these types of exciting opportunities. So our values around supporting growth sector, um, you know, companies and opportunities are very much aligned. And, just like we're working with the CSE on the upcoming family office event, we have access to some of the world's best, in my opinion, growth stories. And those are the stories that family offices are looking to be introduced to. So it's a great platform for us to, extend Canaccord's opportunities to get in front of different investor pools with European and other global family offices.
Right. And do they factor into the trading side as well? If some of these companies, as you said, or investors are looking to, obviously get into a story, maybe not through a private placement or through that as well?
Yeah, both.
Yep.
I
Yep.
think it gives us lots of flexibility. And again, our objectives are aligned in helping those growth companies succeed. And that's not a moment in time, but it's a shared value set around watching that growth from early stage or maybe going public to continued growth throughout the course of that company's lifespan.
For sure. Just a couple more questions, but tell us, like, where do you guys see the company going? IDG, where do you want to grow it into? And any big success stories that you might want to share from your history thus far? But we'll start with where you want to take things.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things we've done post-COVID is sort of jump back on planes and get in front of new investors and family offices. So last year took us into Geneva, and recently we were in Zurich and Dubai. We're heading back to Dubai next month. And again, these are families that can, just like any of us, look up a public company or even a private company and get exposure to the story in the news and what the companies are doing. But again, what they want to do is meet the CEOs and the innovators behind these organizations face to face and build a relationship. And so, over the course of the next 12 to 24 months, we'll continue to take world-class companies and put them in front of these new pools of capital. And that's been a really exciting, shift coming out of COVID, is to get back in front of people in a face-to-face way that's, in the flesh versus over camera.
I agree. And again, looking forward to next week's event. Any particular success stories or big moments in your history as a company that you're proud of or want to share?
Yeah, absolutely. We're fairly private about the success stories because in some regards, I view those as not ours to tell, but the companies we work with, those are their stories to put forward out into the marketplace. But for us, success looks like several companies that we've worked with. I'll take one example, Cinead Innovations. So we work with a parent company, brilliant firm that commercializes research IP coming out of universities, including several Canadian universities, and they will foster those innovators and scientists and build companies that go public underneath them. So one of their success stories would be Gemini Labs. They're publicly traded on the CSE, and they have a portfolio of companies from sustainable chemistry solutions. We have AI, defensive materials coming, just a really exciting portfolio of companies. And for IDG, we're thrilled to work with the parent company, but as that portfolio grows, we have the opportunity to work with each of those portfolio companies and not just put them in front of family offices, but also shape that go public strategy and how they're going to build an investor following. So outside of the family office events that are in person and webcast, we also have unique pools of both institutional and retail investors that we can tap into. And that's in the US, Canada, Europe, UK. And then, of course, we have the IDG network. So we've amassed a community of 10,000 members. They're global. About half of that footprint is Canada and the US. And that's an audience that's also very keen to learn about and follow these exciting growth stories.
Yeah, and you touched on a, I think, critical point, which I'll end on, which is when the money, gets put to work and real innovation occurs as a result of that, and growth of companies is a result of it as well. Obviously, that ends up as a good investment, but you look at biotech or life sciences and some of the things that you can start to do with the strategic capital. That's what gets me excited working at the exchange. Is just that seeing the innovation at work as a result of a smart deployment of capital, a good meeting between an entrepreneur and an investor, and making stuff happen. That's the beauty of what we do, I think.
I couldn't agree more. I will sort of echo the sentiment from our whole team. And every day we feel grateful to get to meet these CEOs and their teams that are literally transforming what the world looks like in years to come. And that's saving lives, protecting people. There's just so many sectors that I think in particular Canada is, wrapping science and innovators and leaders around that have such transformative opportunities for the rest of us to live better lives. And getting to work with these innovators is just, I perpetually wake up feeling lucky to get that one-to-one experience, to hear their stories and then champion them with the right investor communities.
Awesome. Well said. I think we'll leave on that positive note. We're looking forward to next week, seeing you guys in London. It's going to be an awesome time and hopefully a very productive one. I'm James Black. That's Liz Priestman. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of The Exchange for Entrepreneurs, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.